we've heard quite a lot in your presentations about a variety of government interventions, good and bad, I think, and driving some interesting behaviours. As the panel, do you think we need more or less government intervention?
Less.
Yeah, Sue?
Well, I think we need to create a bit more of a level playing field for and guidance on building sustainable communities and incentives towards a zero carbon economy and built environment. So I think we need some light touch, because we don't want to just create lots of extra cost and work for lots of consultants to write reports, but we do need to have a planning framework that does incentivise the right sort of development that people need and build homes that people actually need rather than just executive homes that no one can afford.
Great, thanks. So, Kim, do you have an answer? And has anyone got a question in the audience? Great, there's one there. That's perfect, thank you. Kim.
So, I think slightly controversially, I'd say we need the right kind of government intervention. I don't think it's about having more or having less. And I think that what we can sometimes find is that there's a knee-jerk reaction to an issue and a problem, and then the PD permitted development rights from office to resi is one of those that Steve touched on. So I think those unintended consequences need to be thought through a little bit more carefully and anticipated.
Perfect. Thank you. So that was the easy warm-up question. We've got one question at the back.
Hi, I'm Sharif. I'm from Applied Group in Reading. I came here tonight not really understanding what this was going to be about. And what I've done is I've heard lots and lots about new housing, building new housing. And then we have Launchpad over here who are helping homeless people to get into housing. We have lots of housing in Reading that is derelict or is already in need of being refurbished. So we have unemployed, homeless people with lots of houses that need to be lived in and refurbished. With an educational institution and a homeless charity and people here who are presumably interested in some kind of property, is there not a way that those three things could link together where we could get homeless people retraining into being able to develop the existing housing that we have, rather than constantly thinking about building new skyscrapers and just developing over all the land that we have? This is not necessarily me being some kind of eco-warrior. I just think it's common sense. We have people who need homes, we have training institutions here. Is there nothing that can be done by all these people in this room?
So just to give everyone else so the question I think is, how do we get the local community, homeless people skilled to help be part of the solution with some of the people that are here? Thoughts from the panel?
Julia?
Yeah, so
What a great idea. Can you sort of spearhead that? You sound like a social entrepreneur to me. Yeah, because I think that's what it is. It's like when we did Bedsed, we just thought, we want to do an eco-village. Yeah. I think we all need to chat. We all need to chat afterwards, how you could make it happen. It sounds like a great idea.
okay, Steve?
I was just going to say, I think it's picking up on what Kim said earlier in terms of engaging with a wider audience, which I don't think's done enough. So, yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Kim, anything you want to add?
Just very briefly, that one of the phrases that I didn't use earlier was creative solutions, and I think that's what we need, and that's exactly the kind of thing that's needed alongside other interventions and new build and so on. There needs to be creative solutions and collaboration in terms of making the most of what we've already got.
Good. Just while is there another question to follow that? Great. So at the back, yeah, or just here, both of you would be fine. Just while we're doing that, I don't want to make a plug, Jason, for your competitors. But there is a solution coming, actually, which I think will really dramatically help with what you're suggesting. So St Mungo's, another Southeast-based homeless charity, are launching this month, at the end, I believe, a recovery college in Reading, which I know they're working in partnership with Launchpad on, which will give a really valuable retraining opportunity to Reading's homeless, to be able to give them not just employment skills or employability skills, but also a set of personal skills which are much more current and relevant for the current world. So there are some... So, yeah, I think it's a big topic. We're obviously very happy afterwards to talk about it in more detail. Who's got the first microphone over here?
So we know with climate change on the horizon that we're expecting temperature rises of between probably at least 1.5 degrees, more likely to be probably above 3. Do you guys regard the currently existing housing stock in the UK to be viable for those temperature changes, and if not, what is likely to be put into place to adjust that?
That's a great question. So how resilient is the existing housing stock to the impending probability of temperature rises?
Well, there's mitigation and adaptation, as the jargon goes. So we obviously need to stop boosting the temperature by going fossil-free as soon as possible. I think that's something all of us need to do in our own homes if we are lucky enough to have them. And then there's adaptation, which is much more about, well, we're going to get the heating, what do we do about that? So I think probably the older houses might cope quite well with it, where they're brick built and able to sort of withstand the heat. It's about having enough windows, about using shading. So, maybe there's going to be some business opportunities for people who can put in shades, external shutters like we have in other parts of, more southerly parts of Europe. So I think, in fact, we work with B&Q, so I must remind them of that upcoming opportunity. So I think it's probably easier, it might be easier to cope with overheating. But, I mean, it's interesting because climate change has been a long time. We've been expecting it to come, now it's here. And some of the homes that have been built more recently tend to overheat. So I think when we're building new homes, we do need to make sure that they're got increase in temperature in mind. But I'm not sure if that totally answers your question, but I'll pass on to the other panelists.
Thanks, Steve or Kim, any comment? No? Okay, great. I would just add to that, by the way, one interesting statistic. In my non-day job, I'm a non-exec director at a building research establishment. And I learned when I first joined them that the existing housing stock, on average, based on population growth, needs to last 1,000 years. So, there's a short term, but there's a very long term challenge there for all of us as well. Okay, let's go over here to this gentleman.
My question, Chris Cobbold from Wessex Economics. Does the growth and increase in production of modular housing, is that actually going to moderate house price growth, or does it just have the effect really that the land values go up and we see this continued growth in lack of affordability? So that balance between output and the method of delivery and in a sense is the problem all about shortage of land?
Great, it's a great question. So in summary, does increased productivity or lower costs of build make any difference to land values or house prices, Steve?
Yeah, we've seen it in the likes of Shinfield. I mean, at the moment, if you take Shinfield Arborfield, there's 15, 16 live sites within a 3-mile radius, and we've definitely seen an impact on pricing in terms of prices have come back. I think the trouble is with data and market research, and the market generally, it is very, very regionalised. And if you go back to the slide where I had the increases, which is after the Crossrail slide, the difference in price point between Reading Town Centre and Greater Reading, so it's about £100 per square foot difference. So, in answer to your question, if we have more supply, I think that will keep the prices lower, but I am concerned in terms of Crossrail, Heathrow third runway, the Western Rail link, that will accelerate price growth again.
Okay, and Kim or Sue, anything to add?
I think, I mentioned our sort of new pipeline where we're working with communities, if we can get the land and we can build it ourselves. Because I think when you're selling anything, it's like, what will the market bear? So I think it's highly possible. I think you're right and you know what you're talking about as an estate agent. But I think and I'm not saying but to you, but because I think if there's more houses for sale, then it probably will depress the price. But I think, if you could do some community-led housing here in Reading and, keep the price down, and if you can get some land, Kim mentioned self-build and custom build, look at some things like that, because there are a lot of opportunities with modular housing out there.
Thanks. I'm going to go for one more question. I'm very conscious of time, so I think there's one over here. There'll be plenty of time afterwards, I hope, for you to engage with our panellists and ask them more questions during the reception. So, final question.
Yes. So, those living locally in Reading will know that the road network is quite congested, and a long-mooted solution is the construction of a new bridge between Reading Bridge and Sonning Bridge. Do you guys see the construction of a new bridge as key to unlocking the kind of housing development that we need in future?
That's a fantastic and great and very specific question. I welcome the addition of that new bridge. What do the panel think?
Well, I think actually one of the reasons why we haven't had the third bridge crossing is certain nervousness about what it means in terms of actually freeing up those opportunities. I think there would be, certainly would be, opportunities to develop land around a third bridge crossing, but it would also clearly help the considerable congestion issues that there are going in and out of Reading, and that eastern part of Reading in particular.
Okay, great. Anything to add, Steve? No? Yeah? Great. Okay, thank you. I'm very conscious that we're slightly over time. In a moment, I'm going to ask Jason to come and tell you a little bit more about the appeal. Just to close out, could the panellists sum up in one word, right? One word. If you could choose one enabler to make this better, what would it be? One enabler. What's the thing that's top of mind for you that would make this whole issue of, better homes or homes for good a reality?
Well, more affordable. That's 2 words. But.
Great, more affordable. Thank you.
Fine. What can I say? Sort of new approaches to land use.
Great. Thank you. Kim.
More collaboration and engagement.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much.